Hey everyone, Bren here. In today's video I'm going to show you how I prune tomato plants that grow in containers. I also want to give you an update on the new large cut flower beds. Plus we'll take a look at the bouquets that I put together this week for my small cut flower business, Bren's Blooms. So please just sit back, relax for a few minutes and let's get into it now. We're starting off today over here in the container garden that's had a bit of a, I don't know, what would you say, a facelift? I wanted to add some more colour to help this small space garden look more pretty and hopefully attract more pollinators. I already had some potted colour like these vibrant pink petunias, but I felt like it wasn't enough. So I added in here, for example, some dwarf zinnias in a rainbow of colour. And then on the other side, I have these orange celosia. Next week I'll spend a bit more time showing you what's growing in here. Plenty of food that's doing really well, like these capsicums, got chilies, cucumbers, tomatoes. Speaking of tomatoes, that's what I want to talk about today. This plant down here, I am going to show you how I prune my tomato plants that grow in containers. The one growing in here only cost me $1. It's a variety called Apollo. I've already got 2 massive tomatoes growing on it. It's so exciting. It was so small when I bought it and it's grown quite a lot. I probably should have pruned it before now. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I noticed some of the lower foliage is starting to show signs of disease. And once a tomato plant starts to get disease on it, it can spread very easily. It's most likely some kind of fungal disease, which I'm quite familiar with because I get it every year towards the end of season. So what I'm going to do is, the most important thing today is remove any of the foliage that's not looking healthy. I'm going to use these scissors just to remove any of the bottom stems. Now it's really important that you don't throw this into your compost pile because you could end up spreading disease. So this will be bagged and put into the rubbish bin. Got a couple more there, and this one here. Some of them, if they're small, you can just snap them off with your fingertips, but the larger ones do need a snip. Okay, so I'm pretty pleased with that. I have maybe 3 or 4 inches. So once I actually stake this up, you'll notice that there won't be any foliage touching the ground, and that will help with airflow too. It's really important with tomato plants to have good airflow because they are very susceptible to fungal diseases which can occur if there's too much moisture around or, you know, just lingering in the air. I remember I used to feel really overwhelmed when it came to pruning tomato plants, and the thing is, you don't have to prune them, but if you want to, what I like to do is just have 2 main stems, and then from those main stems you've got lots of flowers and fruit set. So looking at this one, I can tell that this is going to be stem A and that one's going to be stem B, so I'm going to remove this section here which is just getting in the way. After doing that, I can see there's some more stems here that are quite low down. I'll remove both of them also. It's looking much better already, and lots of the sunlight and the heat will get to these tomatoes, so they'll ripen hopefully a bit sooner and I'll be able to harvest them. Now, I do feel like I'm rushing this slightly, and someday I hope to do a more detailed, in-depth video on how to prune your tomato plants, but for the moment I'm going to keep on going. So we have the 2 stems here. Now what we need to do is remove any suckers. So here's a sucker here. It's a growth between this section, and if I was to leave that be, this would just cause the whole plant to go more bushy. So I'm going to remove this, and the great thing about these is if you pop them in a glass of water, changing the water every few days, in about a week and a half, roots will start to form down here. You can pot them on, and this will actually be a brand new tomato plant. It's like a clone of the mother plant. For tying them up today, I'm going to use this old ribbon, which isn't ideal because there's no stretch in it. I prefer using maybe old stockings, or you can buy this special twine from your local hardware store or garden centre. But this is what I have, so I'm going to use it. And I'm going to separately tie up the 2 stems onto this pole, wooden pole. How I tie them up is I do a figure of 8. I also do this when I'm staking up new fruit trees. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So as the plant grows, I'll continue to tie it up this stake, and this is an indeterminate variety, so it can reach up to 1.8 centimeters, which I'm not quite sure if it will get that large growing in a restricted area, but we'll see how it does. If I get like 10 tomatoes out of this plant, I'd be pretty stoked. Here's an update on the new cut flower garden that I put in this year. Now, if I'm honest with you, I was expecting it to have a lot more growth at this stage. It just hasn't worked out exactly the way I'd planned. Like, this one's just pretty much growing grass and weeds. I originally put in statice here and that crop failed because the birds were digging out the seedlings. Then I put in some, Nigella, Love in the Mist. They didn't grow. I do have a few little snapdragon plants at the very back of the row, but they're not usable. The stems are too short. But last year, I actually had a client who requested these short stems to make table arrangements. She wanted the arrangements to be quite low so the customers could see each other across the table. Here's some examples of what I put together then. Anyway, we'll move on to row 2. It's looking quite full here in this row. This is a huge patch of feverview, which I've been using in my bouquets for the last few weeks. What's happening here now is the main stem has been harvested. Oh, there's a little ladybug. The main stem has been harvested and they're putting out additional stems now, but they're quite short and I can't use them. I'm just hoping that these plants, the stems get longer. But I do have other patches around the garden, like there's this one here that I harvested from for the bouquets this week. The stems are about 40 to 70 centimeters tall. Being a bit silly here because I'm trying to harvest the stem just using my hands. I really need to go and grab the secateurs. Okay, so here it is. Look at that beautiful long stem. I can definitely use these in the bouquets. I've got a good few more stems to come out of that raised bed and hopefully in a couple of other patches. We'll see how we go. Anyway, what we're looking at here, more snapdragons. They're pretty, aren't they? But I need to pull them out. Way too much grass. I need to next week come in here and tidy up this whole area and get it looking decent again. Like, here's another empty patch. This is row 3. So I can't remember what I think I had, was it zinnia seedlings in there? Yeah, this whole row was zinnias and the front section failed. This back section is filling out nicely. I'm actually really pleased with it. This one here it looks like a cactus zinnia. The stem is way too short. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off that main flower and hopefully these side shoots will have longer stems on them. I feel like I'm saying stems a lot in this. Oh, look how pretty that is. There's heaps of buds everywhere, but I will be removing some of these and just like encouraging this section to, fill out a bit more. Oh, look at this one. Massive. Now, I can't remember exactly what seedlings I put in here. It looks like just a mixed pack. This one to me looks like the Benry's Giant Wine. But look, it's not quite ready. Its petals haven't fully opened up, but unfortunately I will need to pick that one off because the stem is too short. And here's a bit of an overview. Maybe in a month's time it'll be more full. Now moving on to bed 4 or row 4. At the front of this row I have a big patch of dahlias, heaps of buds on them. They are a mixed bunch of dahlias. I'm not sure what varieties they are, so it'll be a surprise when they start blooming. And the plants themselves are looking lovely and lush and happy. I will need to put something around them to protect them from the wind because it can get quite windy here. It's a very exposed area. Now behind them I have a patch of zinnias, a couple of blooms on them. This is a lovely golden colour. Oh, and I've noticed I have a weed growing amongst them. This is onion weed. And if you let it spread in your garden, it can get out of control. I know because I've had an area before where it was just coming up everywhere. Now, it has bulbs underground, but what it does, how it spreads, is by seed. So for the moment, I don't have time to dig out the bulbs, but I'm going to remove all the flowers to stop them forming seeds and spreading. bit patchy here, but I reckon the other plants will fill out nicely. I recently, for the very first time, got my nails done properly, and I've been looking at colours to get my nails done again. I love this ombre look. It reminds me of a tequila sunrise, which was one of my favourite drinks when I was younger. I'm thinking I might get that colour done on my nails next week. We'll see. This plant was absolutely amazing. Look how many stems are coming out of it. Heaps, maybe 9 or 10 of them. Moving on, I have this patch of cosmos. Cosmos in my area has a little flush of flowers in early summer, like late spring, and then it doesn't really take off until autumn, so I'll have to wait a while for them. Oh, and I'm just showing you again, here's an example of, like, this stem would be too short, so I cut that off, and this center section, that's where I cut it, but you can see they've got the 2 side shoots growing up, and those stems already are quite long. I did some deadheading, and some of those flowers I showed you I put together into making this little garden posy. I think it looks really pretty with the snapdragons, feverview, zinnias. Oh, I can't wait to hopefully pick some nice big bucket loads of flowers from here, but I think I'll be waiting a little while longer. Just needs maybe a month. Hopefully, that's all. Hopefully just one more month and I'll be able to come out here with a bucket and get a decent harvest. Here are the 4 bunches of flowers that I dropped off to Tarmore Garden Centre this morning for my small business Brand's Blooms. And you know, I arrived a few minutes late because the owner told me a lady had called in about 10 minutes beforehand looking for some of my bouquets. Hopefully she'll come back. This is a gorgeous dahlia called First Prize. And then I have gladiolus too. These were in bloom in my garden, and I'm telling you, you can tell that they are homegrown. This one's a stunner. I can't remember its name, typical me, but look at the stem. Like, you would never see professional flowers for sale with a stem that bent. Anyway, left it in, and then I noticed I had another ladybug. The ladybugs are in force in my garden this year. Usually I shake the flowers after I harvest them to try and, you know, dislodge any little insects, but that one managed to stick around. This is a dill flower, and I also have the fennel flowers. I love them. I have my patch of fennel growing in the garden for a few years now, and they put out so many blooms. I added a pop of purpley blue colour this week because my patch of salvia is massive in the garden and there's lots of flowers on it. I use it for both the flowers and the foliage too. Like, that colour is so radiant. And I did have to buy some flowers. These are globe amaranths. I purchased them, and I also purchased some gerberas. These, I think they're like a double bloom, this lovely pink colour and then like a salmony colour too. I thought they looked nice in the arrangements. Usually I would have zinnias at this stage, as I had said to you last week, and they would like fill in the spot of these blooms. I only noticed after I had put together the arrangements, labelled them and tagged them, that some of the feverfew are missing petals. Now, I could have just snipped that flower off, but I decided to leave it be. And then, do you know what happened? I was trying to take some photos and little videos of these flowers. The top of the gladiolus snapped off, but that's all right. It still looks good. Now, as well as doing these flowers this week, I had another order for larger bouquets, and I'm glad to say the clients were happy with these. Very colourful arrangements. I know it's not everyone's style. It's very psychedelic. I don't know what you call it. Loads of gerberas in it, which I purchased. Then there's a bit of status, a bit of feverfew. Oh, what else can I see there? Oh, straw flowers too. These were ordered from a client that purchased flowers last year, so it was really nice to have that repeat customer, and hopefully my customer base will grow over the years. Well, that's a wrap for this week, everyone. And for any of you who celebrate this holiday, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. I'll see you again next Friday.